being able to go out in their school and be curious and see what is going on. So that's really, really exciting, and we'll have it from K to 6 presenting STEM-based projects. So that's very exciting.
And look, an important part too of all of this is the children learning to fail, that science and design doesn't always go as planned, and how do they cope with that? You know, going back to the drawing board, redoing plans, why didn't it work? You know, all that problem solving. But, you know, it's okay if it doesn't work. Where to from here?
You're listening to the Physics Ed Podcast. For hundreds of ideas, free experiments and more, go to fizzics-education.com.au. And now, here's your host, Ben Newsome.
Yes, welcome again to another Physics Ed podcast. Hey, it's a big week this week, and a quite special and inspiring week, because here we get to hear about the Peninsula Community of Schools, which was launched in 2007, but for the last few years has been running science festivals amongst themselves, and not just a couple of schools. We're talking 13 public schools right across the northern beaches of Sydney. Really, really, really cool. And I've been lucky enough to go to a couple of these, and you must imagine all these primary students, these elementary students effectively, all working together in really creating a true vibrant atmosphere so that 9,500 students can feed off that enthusiasm for STEM in general. It's brilliant. And I really, really, really wanted to get Sharon Lawler from Cromer Public School and Shani Law from Mona Vale Public School to talk just a bit about what actually happens in these science festivals. So here's the thing. This is about where this all came from, what actually happens on the grounds, and more importantly, why they do it. So today it's all about getting inspired, and you can hear by my own voice, I was too.
This is the Physics Ed Podcast.
Shani and Sharon, welcome to the Physics Ed Podcast.
Thank you
for having us.
Look, I'm really, really happy to have you here, especially considering you're in the middle of report writing, right?
We are very busy, and parent-teacher interviews, all happening.
Oh, the parent-teacher interviews. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. They're very positive now.
Yeah, they are. I mean, everyone wants to work well with their kids, and but certainly it's when it comes around, it's quite a busy night.
Oh, it is. Yeah, a busy couple of days, yeah. They usually go for over a week or a few days over the week.
And trying to fit in 10 minutes to talk about how amazing your child is very, very difficult. Especially when you're like myself and are a good communicator, it's very hard for me to fit something amazing into 10 minutes.
No, absolutely. I mean, I always feel sorry. Like I've got young kids, and just trying to watch the kindergarten and year 3 teacher try to explain everything. It's just there's no way you can do it.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty poor with the time factor, and I really like to meet the parents. And sometimes, you know, I haven't met mum or dad, and you know, and we can get off track sometimes a little bit as well. And then before you know it, they're 5 minutes late. The next people are 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
And the poor people at the end can be sort of, 40 minutes late. So I've got to get my timing a bit better, I think.
I think it's just how it is for everyone. And there's only so much you can do. I get that. But hey, we probably should just say, obviously we know each other, but you haven't. So people listening have never met you. So where are you? What schools you work and whatnot? So Shani, whereabouts do you work?
Oh, I'm at Mona Vale Public School, and I teach an amazing Year 2 class. I've got children in my class that are so interested and willing to learn that I have to be 5 steps ahead of them all the time. Now, I've only been teaching, this is my 3rd year of teaching, so I came from a corporate background, and I worked for a large pharmaceutical manufacturing company. So I sold raw materials into the cosmetic industries, and before that I actually did a science degree in paleontology. So nothing in my life has ever really been consistent or gone through. But it's always been a dream of mine to be a teacher. And when I had children, I decided to come back, and ended up at Macquarie University, where I was on the Opening Real Science project, and that's how I met Sharon, who became my prac supervisor, and it was a very lucky meeting, I think. Meeting of the minds.
She was amazing and a very impressive student, and as a result of that, she ended up getting work at our school, Cromer Public School, the following year.
There you go. And considering that you worked in paleontology, then you worked in pharmaceuticals, and that's a whole story unto itself. And then
absolutely.
And now you two are working together on a really, really cool project, Peninsula Community of Schools. I mean, that's just unreal. For full disclosure, I ran into what PCS sort of does with a STEM event a couple of years ago, and you really do a lot of cool stuff. Sharon, what's the story with this particular group of schools?
Okay, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm a Year 5 teacher at Cromer Public School, and I have been teaching in schools for over 20 years now, so haven't done quite exciting things like paleontology, and but I am also the science coordinator and have been involved in the PCS Science Fair since its inception about 6 years ago. So just to clarify, the PCS is 13 local schools in our area. So within that, we have 3 high schools and the rest are actually primary schools. And it's a great thing that we do. We don't just get together for science, but we have Kappa groups and Indigenous groups. And, it allows the teachers to get together to meet, to organise amazing events that we have across the 13 schools. And one of them happens to be the PCS Science Fair, which happens every year round about term 3 in September.
Which is a lot of fun. But mind you, though, with teaching for 20 years and obviously getting into science to such a deep level, being now the science person in a lot of ways at your school, geez, you must have done some fun stuff with the kids over the years.
Well, it's interesting just seeing how science has actually evolved. Science back in the early days might have been following a procedure with a quick science experiment, and that was about it, to now where the kids have got this really deep knowledge and understanding, where we're tapping into that natural curiosity and their thinking skills and their ability to collaborate, and they're doing scientific investigations at a very sophisticated level than what we used to do many years ago, and also the design technology, and what the children are capable of, science brings out the natural curiosity within the children, as does technology. So I've seen great changes in the, of course we've got the new science curriculum as well.
Which is too.
Yes, which I led in my school. And again, taking the teachers through the processes and educating and upskilling them into, what is involved in the new syllabus, and also what is a scientific investigation and what is the technology component. I mean, once upon a time, teachers would have viewed the technology component as being on a computer.
Yeah, and now there's the design and, but it does now go to back to the computer of coding and things like that that comes into it for us and integrated across. And I think about being in high school in probably, I won't say the year I was actually in high school, but we used to do an element of coding, and it was, we'd get on our Apple IIes and we'd go in there and we write these little programs and coding, and then to me it seemed to disappear for a long time. You didn't see a lot of it unless you were specialised.
I won't say that computers were not really invented when I first was teaching. I think they were processes, and that was about it. That was sort of, hidden away, and they certainly weren't for us to use or for students to use. So, times have really changed.
Absolutely. So, but mind you, at the same point, technology has also been around since we've had the wheel and axle, which is just kind of fun, just watching how technology evolves, and also looking at what students' perceptions about what they think technology is. I mean, I know I've certainly run a number of programs around this whole what is technology thing, and kids often start at robots. I'll just say, it's a robot, or I'll say at a computer. And I go, well, okay, when was the first robot? And you kind of can go way back to Da Vinci's days and even before that. It's all about, I suppose, perceptions in some ways, but it's a lot of fun exploring that. And the best bit is that for yourselves, I mean, you went through the student teaching and master teacher type stuff, and now you're working together on this really cool project in 2 separate schools at Vale and Cromer. What I love about this is that you've got 3 high schools involved as well, which means you've got a really great collective of teachers to sort of look at primary specialists and secondary specialists together.
And look, the science fair is all about children sharing their learning, children sharing with children, children teaching other children, and we are sort of the facilitators to enable that to happen. And what you see that is on display and what the children actually present is quite amazing. It is.
It's absolutely amazing. And I as a student, went through with Sharon with her Year 4 extension class, and we went through, and these kids put so much work into it, and Sharon really enabled them to get out there and start, she provided them with the resources, and they got out there and they were actually able to research it and put some amazing things together. And that was right across the board, sort of from Year 4 going right up to Year 12 students from the local high schools were doing a similar thing. So it was just great. And then the younger children get to see what the older children are able to do, and it gives them that, looking into the future, oh wow, when I get to high school I'm going to be able to do this, and I can bring it back and show our community and the children within the schools.
But also I think it's quite an eye-opener for the high school teachers. So it gives us a chance to sort of, confer with each other. And I think the high schools are quite blown away by the capability and what the students are actually doing in the primary sector.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just wondering, when this was all formed in 2007, did you kick it off with a science festival, or is this something that just came up as this community worked together?
No, it was discussed. We did have, in the inception, I actually co-coordinate it now, but we had another amazing lady, Sharon Smithies, who actually got it off the ground, and she was the coordinator. And then an expression of interest went out to the schools to see what teachers in each of the 13 schools would be interested in trying to put together this science fair. And the very first meeting was, what will this look like? What will the children get out of it? Where it will be held? And a lot of those logistical sort of things were looked into. And of course, the first year we learnt, it was quite successful, but we learnt we didn't have any audience members. So it was only the children presenting to other children. And then each year we've sort of refined the process. And the second year we decided that we would actually, each school would send along 14 audience members. And then that second year, a little bit of a mistake, because we had all our 13 stations set up, and one of the schools had made this amazing volcano. So, of course, where did all the audience members go to? They went to that station. And the other children were sort of there standing with no one to actually share their learning with. So now we actually do it where the audience members will come in from each school, and they're given like a set program, that they'll start off session 1, they'll go to, a school. It might be station 12, session 2, they'll go to another school, session 3, another school. And then session 4, they actually have free choice. And that way we ensure that all the children at all the stations have got an audience in which they can communicate with.
And these things that are happening on each station, I mean, these are some really brilliantly conceived ideas that the students can do. I mean, I remember even just flicking back onto one of the articles I had to write after visiting in 2016, when you had a variety of different powered cars. You've got Scribblebots being made. It's just the robotics going on. I remember there was a big tray of water, and you're racing boats at one point. There was just all these cool things.
Yeah. Look, in the past we haven't had an element of competition, because we felt that we just want the students to present their learning. But that year the theme was droids, androids and robotics. And what we did is we set out a brief, and each school was given so many cars and so many boats, and then the children had to design them according to the brief. They were all given like a little kit, a circuitry kit with axles and wheels and a core flute base, and then they built upon that, and they did lots of testing, and the aim was to beat the other schools. So on the day, it was amazing, from cars that were built with some lovely sequence on them, to cars that had feathers, to I actually had some boys in my class who actually looked into friction axle development, the surface area of tyres, and their car was quite minimalist, and they'd worked out that that was the best design for them in order to win this race. They did like the hulls of the boat, so I had some students who were researching the hulls of different boats. They were going through that whole design process of designing, having a go, trialling out, back to the drawing board, perfecting things. They were annotating each part of their process. They could see the maths that was coming into it. And one of the things when you started to talk about like axles and wheels, well, funnily enough, the design process takes them back to all those basic skills, measuring, cutting out. How do you make an axle? How does a wheel turn? So all that wonderful knowledge, the meta language, the research skills. It was just phenomenal. And my class is actually a 3-4 extension class, and those children still talk about that particular event today.
Yeah, well, and even going back to 2015 when I worked with Sharon's class, I could not believe it coming in as a student who'd also studied science at university. There were year 4 children talking about phototropism and photosynthesis, and they actually had the concept of, what photosynthesis was, and phototropism, they put experiments into place where they were following light, and then we talked about splitting light, and it was just this great big project of everything involved with light. Children at a very young age taking it on board and being able to teach other children about it very eloquently and educate. They, academically, they were able to get their point across, which was fantastic.
And see, that's that natural curiosity of children, and that's what science and technology does tap into.
And it also gives children now as well a commitment. Because when they go into these science clubs where at the different schools that they're putting together, they have to put a commitment down in place. And I find with a lot of things these days, kids will go in and they'll test the waters and then they'll go on and move on to something else. But when they're involved in the science club that's putting together a project for the PCS Science Fair, they have to commit. And they have to be dedicated to what they're doing. And to see children put a commitment into place is something quite, I think it's quite rare these days.
And those 21st century schools where they're needing to be thinking and collaborating and working as members of a team. It's really important. I actually had my group today. So the project that my year 5 students are going to do, the team this year, the theme is change makers. And at the beginning of the year, our playground was, covered in litter, and we did have this discussion about, changes need to be made. And only today, the science team, they put together a proposal, which they actually put to the principal yesterday to ratify. And then this morning, they actually took that proposal to the staff, and they spoke about what, they hope to do. Their goals and their timeline was all down there, the little bits of research they had done at this stage, and trying to encourage the teachers to get on board because we're hopefully going to be going waste-free. That's our goal.
That's really cool. And then the UN Sustainable Goals would love this as part of it. And I love the fact that it is about all this project-based learning, like big time. Like, to be able to actually turn up to an event like this and not just go, here's my trinket toy thing I've made and put on a desk and just you work it out what to do. Having to actually present about what the thing's about is really genuinely a real skill for real scientists in the real world. It is. I mean, I was lucky enough to be one of the judges at a 3-minute thesis competition for University of New South Wales a little while ago, and watching postgraduate students present their knowledge in 3 minutes to a general audience, it's a tough ask. And even if you've got people who are studying a particular area, trying to get your point across succinctly and well is very much a skill. And one of the things I loved about this particular festival that you've been doing, it's not just in the oral presentation skills, it's also in the posters that surround the place, the ability to communicate messages well and in a way that actually draws people in is actually a skill as well. I really hats off to the kids.
And we often talk about having to equip children today for careers and jobs that they're not even invented yet. So I really feel if we can give children a toolbox to go into a career later in life, then they'll be able to go in and analyse and think about what they need to do, and to have the skills to present and have the skills to be able to collaborate, you know, to be able to go in and do that with jobs that we don't even know.
And problem solving.
And problem solving, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one of the spin-offs of something that Peninsula Community of Schools is actually doing is, you've got your students who get ready to present their thing at this science festival, and you've got the audience come out to be taught a little bit about it, but there's got to be spin-off to each one of those 13 schools themselves in terms of the kids coming back to teach the entire school about what they've done. And then I kind of wonder what the impact is over time in terms of, for example, are there any of the schools going, okay, could we do our own little mini things in their own spaces before coming to the big festival? I'm just out of curiosity.
Well, this is an idea that we're running at Mona Vale this year, and we've introduced a Curiosity Week, and that's going to run in Education Week. And what we're going to do is we've asked every year across the school to put together a STEM project. And then with a view to present that at Education Week. And there's been little spin-offs from, I've got the younger children, and we don't feel that they're, you know, we just don't feel that taking something to a science fair would benefit them at this stage. So I've given them little projects to do here, and then they'll be able to present it in a zone where they're very comfortable and happy. And, you know, giving these kids projects, they get out there, they start measuring. We're talking about putting beehives in, and we're talking about putting a native garden in, and these kids are in year 2, and they are out there moving rocks and deciding where they're going to put bees, and just the joy on their face of being able to go out in their school and be curious and see what is going on. So that's really, really exciting, and we'll have it from K to 6 presenting STEM-based projects. So that's very exciting going on here.
And an important part too of all of this is the children learning to fail, that science and design doesn't always go as planned, and how do they cope with that? You know, going back to the drawing board, redoing plans, why didn't it work? You know, all that problem solving, but you know, it's okay if it doesn't work. Where to from here? So I think they're really important skills. And our project is actually year 5 are actually doing the waste audit, so that's happening next week. So the year 5 children in our school are all involved in the project, but then it will be the 8 students who will actually then take it to the PCS Science Fair to share, you know, their learning and the process they went through, which we're looking really forward to in collecting and collating the data and using that as a main focus of data in our maths area for year 5.
I love the fact that during this conversation, a number of things have come up that some people may not always identify as STEM skills, and yet they 100% are. The idea of being able to fail, to be able to collaboratively work together in a cohesive fashion without fighting, maybe having some empathy for different people for different things.
Yep.
It's part of the whole process, right?
It is. It is, and it's really interesting because sort of coming in as a new teacher, you sort of come in and I think, I've always worked collaboratively with people, you know, in my career and in my jobs, and then I came into school and we're working with these little people, and all of a sudden they all want to be the boss. And, you know, it's really a good skill for them to say, okay, you know, they're in a safe environment where they can say, okay, I can sit back now and I can listen to what my friend has to say because it's valuable. And that's teaching kids resilience, and it's teaching them that it's okay to put your ideas across, but you need to listen to other people as well. That's been very interesting. And kids don't naturally collaborate, I don't believe. We need to teach them how to do that.
Scaffolding to actually do that.
And you can see what happens to teams. You know, I often sort of wonder whether I should say real world, because let's be honest, schools are just as real world as anywhere else. But when you see in the workplace environment, the reality is that successful teams are the ones that, funnily enough, work together. And they've got, often you look at the processes that are involved in getting people together to work on a particular project is about their, you know, the particular analytical skills or their set of content that they've learned over time in different ways. And yet it's the other parts which aren't addressed as much that actually make the difference to whether a project gets off the ground or not. And that's,
I mean, these activities we've discussed, like, they're authentic and they're engaging, and we need to engage these 21st century learners. It's really important. And like the students in my science team, they will be writing letters to members of parliament. They'll be doing lots of research. And I mean, you're looking at, English, persuasion. There's so many skills that come into this particular science project that they're actually doing. And these are life skills, things that they will have to do when they're in the big wide world.
And this is one of the reasons why the PCS as a whole is getting awards. I mean, it's got the Director General's Award, the Cohesive Community of Schools Award. That's really cool because considering it's cohesive community, funnily enough, that's exactly what you're about. The NAB schools, for those people overseas, NAB is one of our major banks here, and it's the first Impact Award, which is really cool. So in other words, it's getting genuine recognition. And I guess the question from that is, have you come across people emulating what you're doing in other schools and other districts?
Yes, we have. I know that I actually have a friend of mine who is a retired DP, and she's working in the Chatswood area and doing something similar, but they don't have a science fair. She does a lot of creative and performing arts type things. So I think it is being emulated in other areas. I mean, the PCS has been going for quite a while now, and we do have support from Macquarie University as well. And I mean, that's another thing that, we're encouraging with the students is using outside people, outside experts. We've had marine biologists and architects and engineers and, and being able to share that with other colleagues. So it's not only just the students sharing, it's also the colleagues sharing what they're doing in their classrooms as well.
And also knowing what's there. I know, at Macquarie, I knew that they had when I was there studying, I knew that they had a planetarium, and it's mobile and it's awesome. It is so fantastic. They just pack it into a little box and then they bring it over to a school and then they blow it up and everybody jumps in and there's Indigenous stories about the constellations, and then it's just amazing. But everyone I spoke to when I came out from university had no idea that was available. So, coming with the support of universities, coming with the support of the community, there's so much available. And then because we're working together, that's accessible for everyone. So,
and even funding, how can we fund certain things, and being able to get together with colleagues from other schools. I know just recently that I've been to a very well-known hardware store and, have managed to get some freebies from this hardware store for our vegetable garden, and that came from other colleagues. So that's really useful as well.
I was going to ask, and actually that bring up the funding thing did really bring up a light in my head going, surely there are some challenges when you put this stuff together. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen straight overnight. I mean, looking back over the time, I mean, even recently, I suppose, what sort of things, if you had to sort of look at or advise even a group of schools in some space far away, you got flown over to have a chat with them about what were the sort of challenges that you'd suggest to them that are likely to occur and perhaps what to do about it? I'm going to throw it out open. You can point at each other and work out who's going to say, I guess.
I sit on the P&C of Newport Public School, and so my children are both there. One is in high school now, but we work very closely with the community and the interested groups within the school. So in the 6 years or 7 years that I've been sitting on the P&C, we've had someone came in with the idea of making the gardens at the school into a native bush garden. Anyway, that has grown, and the support has actually come from the P&C fundraising. So now we have this amazing community garden. We have each classroom has adopted a patch, so and they can build and design their own little bit of garden. They've got an edible bush garden, and that sort of thing is we've funded it through the P&C, and also you find that other parties within the school will come and join with the P&C and say, okay, so P&C is giving $5,000 to put this initiative together, we'll match that. So that,
funding can be a
very
tricky
tricky
area, and that's where you have to get very creative, and that is appealing to outside businesses and agencies and having the children being part of that. So we're trying to implement all these new bins within the school, so they've got to research the pricing of it. They are going to ring up or email the company that we deal with as far as taking our rubbish away. They're also going to meet with other children and a coordinator in another school. So, I mean, that's all part of it. They need to know that, money can be restricted, and again, it's problem solving. But, talking to your other colleagues and not building up the value within your school community is really important, and then you might find that the money can flow a little bit easier.
Well, it comes down to being creative, doesn't it? Like that, funnily enough, is exactly about what STEAM is all about. It's a brilliant initiative. Loving it. Absolutely. I guess as we sort of think to the future, I kind of wonder, what have you got coming up that, what bigger and better things have you got in mind for this program?
Do you want to go?
You mean the PCS Science Fair?
Science Fair?
Yeah. PCS Science Fair. And hey, why not? Your own individual schools, what you might be doing too.
Within the PCS Science Fair, every year we're trying to improve and it evolves. And because it's based around the particular science theme of the year, it does evolve and it is quite different. But, we were talking, I actually worked with Sydney Uni and was trained up on the Young Scientist of the Year, where I actually went in and I was judging some design and some scientific investigations. And I have a really nice rubric from that. And I actually put that to the science committee and said maybe we could have the schools, having some communal project. And, one of the teachers said, what about a design for a compost container, so always looking at how we can evolve and do things a little bit differently. So I suppose now we're sort of quite focused on September and what's going to happen.
And I think the evolution I've seen as well is the green team and the sustainability side of things come into the science fair. So the year that I was working with Sharon, it was science-based, and now we sometimes meet at the same time, don't we? We have a green team that's involved, and they're coming and presenting at the science fair as well. So, we're really starting to combine not just science, we're combining sustainability, which, and the green team, and really helping these, and STEM and STEAM, and helping these children, get very good concept of the way it is in the real world.
Yeah, look, it's really well done. And look, and let's be honest, Shani and Sharon, you represent only 2 of the 13 schools, let's be honest, that is involved with this. And thank you very much for just spending some time, especially during report writing, just pop in and just let us know what PCS has been doing, and in your own individual schools at Cromer and Mona Vale. It's really clear that it's working, and I can't wait to see what else you do with it in lots of ways. It's really it's a lot of fun. Look, much appreciated.
Bigger and better.
Oh, it is. They do. Yeah. I kind of wonder about the bigger. Like, you're already filling that school hall. I mean, you have to spill it out.
And get Sharon and I together, and you can only but imagine what happens.
Sky's the limit. Have a go. We encourage teachers to have a go, and we've had our failures as well. But it's all about supporting and working together with colleagues and having a go, and just being confident that science and technology, the children are naturally engaged and very curious about the world around them. So,
and the beauty about it is you're modelling modern thinking to 9,500 students every single year.
Yes,
and that's the bottom line. And it's all about being a force multiplier, and that's what these sort of events are all about. And I know there's only one part of what the PCS does, but gee, it's a good part. It's a very strong part.
We think it's a fantastic part.
We're very proud to be part of it. Yeah.
It's brilliantly done. Now, speaking of which, there'll be people who would love to possibly know more. So how would they get in touch?
Probably via email. Or they could possibly ring Cromer Public School or Mona Vale Public School. It just may be a bit difficult if we're on class, so possibly email might be the best way if anybody has any questions. Or by any means, if people wanted to visit our science fair and have a look and how it operates, or one of our meetings, you know, we'd be more than welcome to share that and to allow people to have a look at how it all comes together.
No, absolutely. What we'll do is we'll put this all in the show notes so that we'll put some links up and some contact details, and not a worry. Just, you know, if you're wondering where to go find those stuff, just look on wherever you listen to this podcast, or just jump on the Physics Ed website and just type in Peninsula Community of Schools, and you guarantee we'll find this with all the info. And mind you, put it into Google and go direct. You'll probably find a bit of stuff there out on the web as well, because it is a great program. But I need to leave you be with your report writing, Noah. Sadly, as much as I know you'd love to.
Oh, this has been a terrific break, actually. I feel rejuvenated and I'm ready to go back to it now. Yeah,
well, they won't write themselves, I've been told, unfortunately. But you've got to do it. But, look, much appreciated. Thank you very much again for popping on, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay,
yeah, thank you so much
for having us.
This is the Physics Ed podcast. We're all about science, edtech and more. To see 100 fun free experiments you can do with your class, go to fizzics-education.com.au. That's physics spelled Fizzics, and click 100 free experiments.
How great is Shani Law and Sharon Lawler? Unreal teachers. You can really hear there's genuine passion for education, and clearly they love their science, their STEM in general. And I must say, it would be really cool to be one of their students, and not just in their schools, but right across all the 13 schools of the Peninsula Community of Schools up on the northern beaches of Sydney. What a brilliant science festival. And by the way, if you're wondering how to start setting up a science festival, even if you're not in a school itself with that supportive environment, you totally can do that. And actually, I reckon you should go check out episode 4. Back when we spoke with Vanessa Barrett when she was working for the Australian Botanic Garden in Mount Annan, she has a bucket load of experience when it comes to putting together science festivals. It might be worth checking out.
And we just went with a simple format of a free family day. And it got the funding. This would be the 5th year that Science in the Swamp's been running. And I think the other reason it worked and it attracted funding and it attracted support, it wasn't about us. We weren't trying to spruik ourselves. We were just basically a place where all of the local science groups and science communication groups could come together and do something.
You're listening to the Physics Ed podcast. Why don't you book us for a science show or workshop in your school? We love seeing students get excited about science, and you will too. Go to fizzics-education.com.au and click on Schools for more info.
Yes, there's so much you can be doing when it comes to getting the community into science by putting on festivals such as the ones that Vanessa Barrett has been doing, or the ones at the Peninsula Community of Schools. It doesn't have to be a huge, larger-than-life thing. It can be a bit smaller, but mind you, if you want to get involved in a massive thing, go check out the Sydney Science Festival. In fact, back in episode 58, we got to speak with Ellie Downing and Catherine Polsk, who are the festival organisers of the Sydney Science Festival. And trust me, that is a mega event with a couple of hundred events right across the Sydney basin, and it's really, really, really cool. But we are at the end of this particular podcast. We do have more on the way about getting STEM out into the community and also within your own classrooms or wherever you happen to be working. We have more coming up. So anyway, you've been listening to me, Ben Newsome from Phys Education, and you've been checking out the Phys Ed podcast. I hope you keep sticking with us. I will catch you next time we're live.
You've been listening to another Physics Ed podcast. We're excited about science. Subscribe to us on iTunes to download the next episode as soon as it's released. And don't forget, for hundreds of ideas, free experiments, our new Be Amazing book and more, go to fizzics-education.com.au. That's physics spelled Fizzics.
This podcast is part of the Australian Educators Online Network. aeon.net.au